Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Several months ago, I was asked by a mortgage lender to share with realtors I knew, other real estate professionals, about an educational program he was doing called a Lunch and Learn. He wanted me to share information about this Lunch and Learn. This mortgage lender, great person, helped me a lot, but I'm sitting there with the email and I'm like, geez, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to share this out. I figured, realtors that I knew, and I know a lot, I figured they won't care. They'll see it as an intrusion. We all get hit with all these things all the time. And, I just don't want to be one more person sending one more piece of email to them. I have so many other things to do. And I just didn't want to do it. But I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I made a list of realtors that I knew well enough that if there were a problem, I could pedal back and say, yeah, I was just doing a favor for somebody. And so I sent it out. I sent it out. I don't know, maybe it was 12, 15 realtors. And I was blown away by the response. Most people were, well, they weren't put out by it. Most people they thanked me. They were appreciative of what it was. A couple of people explained how, because they had looked into it, how it would help them. And one person even kind of made an indication like they were beholden to me because I'd done something so wonderful for them. Here I am thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this because I'm assuming they don't need this. And I was wrong. I was totally wrong. That's the problem. We don't fail often to refer people because we're selfish. We fail because we assume. We assume we're going to step on somebody's toes. We assume somebody doesn't need it. We assume it's going to be an intrusion. We assume they probably already know someone. We assume they're covered. But covered doesn't mean satisfied, right? Every realtor I know knows another mortgage lender, but they could use one more. Most of the realtors I know are in AmSpirit Business Connections. There's a mortgage lender that's sitting there with them who's probably getting the lion's share of their business, but that mortgage lender doesn't do everything that needs to be done. We assume they don't need this. We decide for them. And that's like a waiter deciding we're not hungry. We just need to ask. We assume they'll think I'm being pushy. But we need to remember that offering value isn't pushy. Pushing yourself is pushy, but there's a difference, right? There's a difference. I had no stake in this Lunch and Learn. I just don't. I'm happy that it works out for somebody. I'm not pushing myself. That's pushy. An offer is not an intrusion. An offer is a gift. That's how I should have looked at it. The offer wasn't an intrusion. It was a gift. I'm trying to help you. So why do we make these assumptions? Why do we make these assumptions? Why do we not give referrals? Why do we not make introductions? Why do we hold back from our network? Fear of rejection? I'm being honest. I'm fearing that somebody's going to say, oh my God, Frank, send me another email. I don't need one more of these emails. That's entirely possible that could happen. But in reality, if I really think about that with a rational mind, if somebody else were a third party were asking me whether to do this or not, I would say, yes, somebody might come at you and they might reject you, but it says more about them than it does you. Fear of looking self-serving. Again, I kind of covered that already. It's, making this offer is is not being pushy. It's not, it's not self-serving. It's not anything of the sort. It's me just sharing information out. And if it's, here, I'm offering this to you. If you don't need it, that's fine. Just say no, thank you. It's that simple. You don't even have to do that. Just ignore you got it. Laziness, yeah, it's easier not to act. We're all busy. I got tons of stuff to do. I do. I feel bad saying no to people. I feel bad all the time. But when you say no to somebody, or we say yes to somebody, we're saying no to something else, right? But in hindsight, I looked at this and it's like, yeah, okay, there might be value here. And obviously there was. The other reason we might not do it is just ego. If these people needed help, they would ask. Well, people might not ask. People might not ask. They don't know who I know, so why would they? Why would they be asking me? Here's a simple analogy. If you're holding an umbrella and it looks cloudy, you don't wait until someone is soaked before offering it. You say, "Do you need this?" Networking is simply offering umbrellas before the storm. Just sharing out information. For me to hang on to the information about that lunch and learn, and I'll be honest with you, when I got the response from this select group, I just had more courage. I just started sending it out. In fact, I met somebody that afternoon over the lunch hour who happened to be a realtor type, and I sent them the information. I just brand new. I thought you might want this, and they were excited that they got it. So this applies. There are lots of real world examples. You assume a business owner already has an accountant, but it might turn out that they have somebody, but they haven't heard from them in 6 months, or it's not the right person, or they're not getting serviced the right way. You assume that a chamber doesn't need a speaker. In reality, you don't see these things, but they're scrambling behind the scenes to find a speaker for whatever program they're putting on. You assume someone's friend is handling their estate planning. I assumed your friend was dealing with this stuff for you. He's an attorney. She's an attorney. I figured they were handling it. So you don't offer up your services. You don't put yourself out there. You don't make an introduction. But then you find out they've been procrastinating for years. They're not using their friend who's an attorney because it's a little too cozy. Well, it's personal matters. You don't want to be necessarily, you want to have a delineation between who are friends and who are the professionals serving you. I certainly saw that. When I was an attorney, most of my friends, most of my wife's friends didn't use me. And you know what? I was okay with that. I was okay with that because I didn't want to get into their personal business. I didn't want to know, what they owned or what their situation was or, what kind of dirty laundry they had or what kind of great things were going on. I didn't want to know. I wanted to keep it friendly. I wanted to, hey, let's watch the game together. So you can't make those sorts of assumptions. Or this is one, you assume that two people already know each other. And they don't. And the introduction becomes awesome for both people. Several weeks ago, I interviewed David Homan on my podcast. He's the author of Orchestrating Connections. He's a composer, lives in New York. Well, I know another composer, Michael Kruk. And I just assumed they knew each other. They're both in the same city, I just assumed, and I'm like, I delayed and delayed. Should I just ask? They probably know each other. I looked at their LinkedIn profiles. I couldn't see. It wasn't easy to see if they were connected or not. It's a lot of work, takes time. They must know each other. Surely they know each other. They're both in New York City. But I figured, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and ask. I'm just going to go ahead and ask and just see if this would be worthwhile. And I didn't just connect them and assume. I just asked both parties, hey, are you familiar with this person? And they both came back and said, no, don't know them, would love to meet them. So I made the connection. You know what ended up happening? They both live in the same part of New York City. New York City is bigger than a lot of states. I won't do the math, but it's almost bigger than Ohio. I will tell you that. New York City is like 10 million people. Ohio might be right around there. So to us, it's New York City. Oh, you're in New York City. You must know this person. You know what? 10 million people. It's entirely likely that people don't know each other. And I wasn't going to do it. But I'm glad I did. And I think they'll be glad they did too. The reality is that the cost of asking is tiny. The cost of asking is tiny. The cost of assuming is enormous, however. Enormous. I mean, for me just to ask, say, you two know each other? If it might turn out that they do. I got an introduction email the other day. Somebody introduced me to somebody I already know. And my response in those situations is not, well, I already know that person. My response in those situations is, thank you. Thank you for thinking of me. You are on the right track. This is a great person. I already know them, but you are on the right track. And I appreciate you thinking of me. Please keep it up. Whereas some people would be like, oh, I already know them. You're not being very helpful. Your job in networking, our job in networking, is not to decide who needs what. Our job is to simply do this, to listen, observe, offer, connect. That's it. That's it. We're not the judge of relevance. We're just the bridge. People can decide for themselves. A bridge doesn't decide who crosses it. They just stand there and make the crossing possible. That's our role in networking. So here are some practical takeaways, right? Replace assumptions with questions. Instead of, they probably don't need this, try, would this be helpful? Would this introduction be helpful? Would you like to meet this person? And if they say no, that's okay. What I have found is more times than not, somebody's like, yeah, I would love to meet them. Or, you know what? My accountant just retired or something like that. You just never know, right? Make it soft for others. In other words, language like, if it would help, I'm happy to connect you with, or no pressure, just thought of you. Might you like to meet this person? And then the final practical takeaway is this. Err on the side of generosity. If you're wrong, so what? Nothing happens. If you're right, there's the possibility that something powerful will happen. I have calls every day. I talk to my wife. I've got a call with this person. They're interested in buying a franchise, or they're interested in starting a chapter. I don't know where it's going to go, but I would rather have the call than not have the call. I would rather have the call than not have the call. And that's probably true of everybody. They would rather have the call than not have the call. They would rather have the opportunity put before them than for me to decide for them. So I wasn't going to send this information out. It wasn't that I didn't care. It was because I assumed. And my assumption was wrong. And I shouldn't make those assumptions. And we're all guilty of it. Most misreferrals don't die because of competition. They die because of hesitation. They die because we decide for someone else. So stop deciding and start offering.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connections. All rights reserved.